Okay, it looks like we are recording. So we're continuing with our phonology chapter, the Phonology II section, the second half of the phonology chapter. And we're beginning section 4.3, which has everything to do with syllables and feet. Now, if you've ever studied poetry, you'll remember probably being taught terms like iambic pentameter, or what a trochee was, or what a dactyl was. And these were just fancy names for groups of syllables. So an iamb, for instance, has an unstressed syllable and a stressed syllable. Bum, 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 bum. And a dactyl has three syllables: stressed, unstressed, unstressed. Bum, 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 bum. You got the idea. We'll start with syllables, and let's get straight to the point. They observe at the bottom of page 126 that it's actually kind of difficult to define syllable. Now, on the other hand, you have a natural sense of what a syllable is. All you have to do is read some text aloud and slap the table every time you feel that there's a syllable. The form in which a word is pronounced when it is considered in isolation is called its citation form. Syllables. And with that in mind, let's look at the diagram at the top of page 127. This just diagrams a syllable. And we're going to posit that there are three parts to every syllable. The most important part, the nucleus. And this is, I would nearly say, always going to be a vowel, except there are several consonants which behave like vowels, which will often take that place. The onset, whatever the syllable starts with, and the coda, whatever the syllable ends with. The fancy symbol there is just the Greek sigma, by the way, which we're going to use as the S for syllable. In part B of that diagram, you'll see that the word napkin has been diagrammed syllabically. Two syllables, each with an onset, a nucleus, and a coda. Nap, onset, the sound N. Nucleus, the vowel A. Coda, the sound P, nap. And then kin, onset K, nucleus I, and coda N. Now, bear in mind, as the text observance on page 127, syllables change from language to language. If you're a speaker of Japanese, for instance, it is almost unheard of to have syllables longer or accepting consonant vowel. And if you look at Japanese place names, you can see this in action. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Tokyo, and so on. Almost any Japanese word will fall into this consonant vowel syllable structure. But English is a little more complicated. That is to say, you can actually have syllables in English with three consonants at the start and three consonants at the end. Let's see, can I think of one? Splints, SPL at the start, the NTS sound at the end, and the I sound in the middle there. Now, I observed that certain consonants can behave like vowels. They can even become nuclei as a result. Think of the N in a word like button. There isn't really a vowel between the middle consonant and the N sound. You slide right into the N. Button. And what we're going to argue is that the N is behaving like a vowel there. Now, there are several consonants that behave like this. They're usually nasals or fricatives, and they're often almost entirely voiced, but we don't really need to say any more about them at this stage. Just observe that this happens. Right. What about words with, let's say, 2 or 3 syllables, where there's 1 or 2 consonants at the end of the first syllable and 1 or 2 consonants at the beginning of the next syllable? So that might give you, for instance, a string of 4 consonants. Which syllable do they belong to? This is, as the text says, a non-trivial problem. And it's particularly important when we are building words. Think about the NTR in untrained. Is the T part of the opening syllable, or is it part of the second syllable? Now, honestly, your common sense is going to say, oh, the T is certainly part of the second syllable, but you will often find words where it's not so obvious. Now, the text refers to the aspiration rule here as one tool for finding out whether a consonant is part of the first syllable or the second syllable. Because as we know, and this is a rule you're just going to have to accept as truth, a consonant, particularly if it's a stop consonant, and we just spoke about this earlier in the last portion of this lecture, a consonant that opens a syllable, particularly if it's unvoiced, is aspirated. So, for instance, the P in pot creates a big blast of air out of your lips, but the P in splint does not. Now, the P in splint does not cause a blast of air because it's not syllable initial. It's not starting that syllable. If it were starting that syllable, it would indeed be aspirated. It'd have that blast of air. One way of determining whether a consonant is part of the second syllable or the first, if it's, for instance, a stop, is it aspirated or not? If it's aspirated, it's certainly part of the second syllable. Now, that's a subset of what is in fact a more important rule, what the text is calling very grandly the maximal onset principle, which is introduced 2/3 of the way down page 128. Now, you remember that I said that English is almost unique in its ability to form gigantic syllabi. Consonant, 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 vowel, consonant, consonant, consonant. Splints. Now, let's take a slightly less complicated combination of consonants. NSTR, if it's not complicated, if it isn't as complicated as splits. And I'm particularly thinking of the word constructs, which the text provides about 3/4 of the way down page 128. Now, NSTR, you've got a string of 4 consonants here. And what you need to do right now is ask yourself, well, let's start from the end of the string, the R. Can we start a word with an R? We certainly can. Right, row, whatever it might be. Okay, let's add the T. Can we start a word with a TR? Yes, we can. truck, train, etc. Okay, let's add the S. Can we start a word with an STR? We certainly can. String, stripe, etc. All right, now let's add the N. Can we start a word with an NSTR? We can't. So, using our maximal onset principle, what we're going to do is automatically assume that the STR is part of the second syllable and the N is part of the first syllable, because that STR can open a syllable. Now, this rule can be broken sometimes, but I'm going to say it is 99% honored, the maximal onset principle. And it's stated grandly on page 128 here. The sequence of consonants that combine to form an onset with the vowel on the right are those that correspond to the maximal sequence that is available at the beginning of words. That is to say, as many consonants as you can naturally add to the onset of the second syllable are the consonants that will be part of that second syllable. Anything else is going to be part of the first syllable. Now, there's another way of looking at this. Is the T part of the opening syllable? That is, in constructs, is the word actually cons and tructs? Well, we need some sort of phonetic recording software to show this, but it would be relatively easy to find out, is that T aspirated or not? That is to say, is there a blast of air in the T? Excuse me. If there isn't, it isn't aspirated, and therefore it's not syllable initial. All right. Now, if you look at the second paragraph there, it looks a little formidable, but all it's really doing is offering all the possibilities and then writing off the ones that are impossible. So I'm on page 129, by the way. VNSV, that is to say, in a word where you have a vowel, NS, vowel, is the NS part of the second syllable, or is the NS part of the first syllable? Well, think about this. Can you start a word with NS? You can't. So what we're going to say, using the maximal onset principle, is that S is part of the second syllable and the N is part of the first principle. Same thing's going on with VNST, VNSTR, VFTV, VPV, and so on. This looks like mathematics, but it's just vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel, etc. Excuse me. So that's the maximal onset principle. I quite like the restatement, by the way, 2 paragraphs up from the bottom of page 129. Any series of consonants between vowels is divided so that the syllable on the right ends up with the maximal allowable number that satisfies the conditions of English syllable onsets. There. There isn't really anything else to add there. This is a rule mostly unique to English, by the way, because we don't. The other languages we were talking about don't have the ability to put these consonants together in huge strings. The text asks at the bottom of the first paragraph on page 130, what baseball term do you think Suturaiku stands for? Now, bear in mind that in Japanese, STR cannot come together. They have to be separated by vowels. So if you take the vowels back out again, strike. So there you are. That's this portion of the lecture over and done with. We will move on to patterns of prominence now, beginning page 130.